So I don't think enough people realise just how miraculous the Lord of the Rings trilogy is. You know, considering who directed it and the kind of things this man was known for.
Suddenly, you must think it very odd of me that I enjoy the act of sodomy.
Studio executives at New Line Cinema gave the man who made this $500 million in today's money to adapt one of the greatest literary classics of all time. Only in our messed up reality did that turn out to be a good decision. But even if this trilogy had the most decorated director of all time at the helm, it would still continuously shock me just how brilliant these films are. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is a beautifully shot, well-acted, brilliantly scored, cinematic masterpiece. There hadn't been anything like it, and there hasn't been anything like it since. And if Tolkien had been around to see Jackson's magnum opus, I can only imagine how bloody blown his mind would have been. But speaking of Tolkien, his original Lord of the Rings novels were written way back in the 50s, and The Hobbit goes as far back as 1937. And with Fellowship of the Ring hitting theaters in 2001, that's 64 years it took to finally adapt Tolkien's works to the big screen. Except, that's a complete lie. It took way less than that. You think Peter Jackson's trilogy were the first Lord of the Rings movies? Obviously not. Rav Bakshi did one. Everyone knows that. Wait a minute. How many of these were there? 8. 8? Yeah, Peter Jackson's trilogy was actually the 9th on-screen adaptation of Tolkien's books. How oddly thematic. And believe it or not, there was actually supposed to be even more. You see, the idea of a Lord of the Rings movie goes as far back as the books themselves, because the first interested customer was a man Tolkien notoriously didn't like. Walt Disney, and he was considering making an animated adaptation way back in the 50s, but storyboard artists thought it was a bit too long for an animated film, and also they thought the subject matter wasn't really kid-friendly enough for the Disney brand, so they shelved the idea. Then, during the height of Beatlemania, the Fab Four themselves were on a 3-picture deal with United Artists. They'd already done 2 of the 3 films, and seemingly high off their asses, they actually considered doing a Lord of the Rings themed musical motion picture. Now, it didn't go through. In fact, the project never even really got started. Apparently, they spent a lot of time arguing who would play who, with them eventually deciding that Paul would be Frodo, Ringo would be Sam, George would be Gandalf, and John was gonna play Gollum. I want to repeat that. John Lennon as Gollum. And you think that's bad? Well, cut to the 70s where British director John Boorman was set to direct a 3-hour movie adaptation, which also got cancelled, and when you read about what he was planning, you'll be very glad it did. From how in the script, Sauron was described as looking like Mick Jagger, frickin' Al Pacino was considered to play Frodo, and despite how fantasy was seen as mostly a kid's thing back then, they, for some reason, wanted to spruce up the sex factor big time. With how weirdly horny the whole Fellowship gets for Galadriel, with Frodo and her even getting it on. Alright. And with Aragorn healing Éowyn by... just read this, and take into account Éowyn is dying here. Aragorn summons all his strength and grasps Éowyn's body tightly. Aragorn spreads out her arms and covers her with his body. After a moment, she moans and her body writhes. Aragorn grasps her and kisses her with passion and intensity. Am I reading Lord of the Rings or 50 Shades of Gandalf the Grey? But all those adaptations never happened, thank f***. So what actually did get made? Well, let's go through every adaptation pre-Jackson trilogy to see what's what. So what was the first ever on-screen adaptation of Tolkien's works? Well, it was an absolute f***ing disaster. Guys, let me introduce to you a man called William L. Snyder, who in 1961 nabbed himself the rights to adapt The Hobbit into an animated film, and his contract stipulated he had to release this film within 5 years. So, he commissioned a cartoonist called Gene Deitch to write a script, and 20th Century Fox were set to distribute, until they decided not to.
I don't care anymore.
And it was bad timing as the 5-year lease was almost up. If Snyder didn't make this film, he was going to lose the rights. But come on, Bill. Don't pout. Don't sob.
Just do a half-assed job.
And that is precisely what he did. For Snyder and Deitch got to work and quickly put together this hunk of shit. 1967's The Hobbit, the, regrettably, first official on-screen adaptation of Tolkien's work, a crudely animated and narrated storyboard of images, which came out to just 12 minutes in length. But wait a minute, I hear you say. Didn't the contract state that he had to make a movie? Well, yeah, but the contract didn't specify a runtime. But they had to release this quote-unquote movie. They had to prove that people saw it. So, you know what they did? They exhibited it for one time only in New York City, and they literally went out onto the streets of Manhattan and asked passers-by if they had 12 minutes spare to watch it. And to rope them in, they even gave them the admission money to get in. All they asked in return was for them to sign a document stating they paid money to see the film. And this ensured Snyder held onto the rights, which he later sold back to the Tolkien estate for about $900,000 in today's money. You devious son of a bitch. And I do not need to tell you that the short is terrible. I mean, the Hobbit trilogy that we all know gets a lot of flack for stretching one book into a trilogy of films. But this bloody thing tells the whole story in about the same time it takes for me to boil an egg. It is diabolically bad. And what do you expect when it was designed by a guy called Oh my god, it's Hitler! And for whatever reason, despite how rushed the production of this was, they for some reason took the time to change a lot of the characters' names. Instead of Gollum, it's Gollum.
We durstn't let it take our dearest ring, Gloom.
Instead of trolls, they're called Gromes.
The legends say that groans must be in their caves before sunrise, or they'll surely turn into dry trees rooted to the ground forever.
And instead of Smaug, the dragon is called...
by the monster lizard Slag the Terrible.
I'm sorry, the dragon is called what?
Slag.
Well, he hoards a bunch of gold and destroyed the lives of many men. I guess he is a bit of a slag. And speaking of slags, for some reason they created a brand new character called Princess Mika, who ends up marrying Bilbo in the end.
And Bilbo and Mika reigned there together. But finally they returned to that quiet, comfortable life in Hobbiton.
You know, it's kind of weird for me to say this, but I actually think giving Bilbo a love interest in the Hobbit trilogy would have unironically been a good move. With Mika here being a princess of the Lonely Mountain, it would have given Bilbo more of a connection to Erebor, I think. I always felt that Bilbo had nothing relevant to do in the last film. A love interest could have offered something. Certainly would have made more sense to give our hero a love interest, you know, as opposed to giving one to one of the billion side characters. Okay, honestly not much else to talk about with this one, so let's move on. And allow me to set the scene with this one by talking about The Lord of the Rings' overlooked but strong connection to music. Yeah, I mean, there was the short-lived Lord of the Rings musical in the West End, there was the aforementioned Beatles connection, and many real-world musicians sang songs about Tolkien's works. Seems like every musician threw in references to Lord of the Rings. Led Zeppelin, Enya, Black Sabbath, Leonard Nimoy, Rush... Leonard Nimoy?
Bilbo, Bilbo Baggins, the bravest little hobbit of them all.
The 60s, man. But another musician who was inspired by the works of Tolkien was a Swedish guy called Bo Hansson, who recorded an entire instrumental progressive rock concept album in 1969, with the tracks all being based on moments from Tolkien's book. And this album was quite successful. It got certified gold in the UK and reached the top 40 here. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, this album served as the inspiration for the very first live-action adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. But when I say live-action...
När hoben Bilbo fyllde 111 år ordnade han en stor födelsedagsfest.
I use that term very loosely. Yeah, this is Sagan Om Ringen. And I've definitely butchered that. In English, it's called The Saga of the Ring. And it was a made-for-TV special produced by Sweden's national broadcaster SVT, which aired way back in 1971. And yes, it is as terrible as it looks. It has the production value of a high school play, with cheap costumes, god-awful blue screen, and not even any character dialogue. All it is a retelling of the events leading up to the Council of Elrond, narrated ad nauseum by a guy whose only wish is to dump on you a mountain of exposition.
Gandalf gick först. Sen följde Vitstige, Frodo och Sam. Legolas, som såg bäst, gick sist.
Kill him!
And just look at the character designs. Frodo appears to be a woman, Sam looks like a court jester, Gandalf looks like Leonardo da Vinci, Gimli looks like Robin Hood, and the One Ring looks like a goddamn donut. I mean, it is sort of interesting to watch this because it does differ in what it adapts. Like that there is Tom Bombadil, and the elf sent to help Frodo is not Arwen, it's Glorfindel, like he does in the books. And Sagan Om Ringen is actually the only Lord of the Rings adaptation that includes this character. Every other version either substitutes him for another elf, like Arwen or Legolas, or they just omit him altogether, and Frodo takes himself to Rivendell. But yeah, this special is definitely a relic of its time. This is also on YouTube for anyone curious, and credit to YouTuber Pengi, who translated this for the world to see. But let's move on to actual feature-length adaptations. And the first one of those was a made-for-TV special, produced by Rankin, known mostly for their stop-motion work. I'm sure a lot of Americans will recognize their Christmas specials, but in 1977, they collaborated with a Japanese animation studio called Topcraft to produce an adaptation of The Hobbit. Topcraft, by the way, went bankrupt 8 years later, and its assets got bought up by this guy. So yeah, this version of The Hobbit, you could argue, is an early Studio Ghibli production. Totally. Kind of. Sort of. Not really. But still, that must mean the film is fairly decent, right? Well, honestly, I just found it fine. I mean, with the Peter Jackson Hobbit trilogy fresh in mind, of which personally I do like those films, this version comes across as pretty rushed. It's only about an hour 17 long, and yes, it tells the whole story of The Hobbit. It's a lot to tell in that amount of time, and as such, the film is plagued with a lot of exposition, with the only scenes that are given room to breathe are Bilbo's encounter with Gollum, who in this version looks more like a frog, and I dare say is even more unhinged than Circus. This guy needs a Snickers.
You're not you when you're hungry.
And then there's Bilbo's encounter with Smaug, who for some reason has had car headlights inserted into his eyeballs.
This the adventure you've planned for me? To help you recapture the gold?
None other.
Oh, that reminds me, I need to sort out those squeaky door hinges. So yeah, the film wastes no time. They come across the trolls, all the dwarves get caught off screen. They get caught by the elves, Bilbo frees them in a jump cut. The men, elves and dwarves are about to go to war with each other, the goblin army approaches, and the three kings have the quickest turnaround of character imaginable.
O noble king under the mountains, your people are like brothers unto mine.
Brothers who literally 20 seconds ago I was willing to slaughter in their thousands. It is interesting though to see how this differs from the Jackson version, like how Elrond is rocking a halo for some reason, and how the goblins are both less and more frightening at the same time. Jesus! Speaking of Bilbo, you might honestly find him kind of annoying in this. Now, I wasn't bothered by him personally, but he has a very whimsical and overly dramatic way of speaking that might get on your nerves.
Simply enchanting. I don't know how to thank you. Bless my soul. But I'd appreciate a more pragmatic salute. Can't tell you how grateful I am. Oh, I say. Splendid news, old fellow.
Splendid news, old fellow. Oh, I say. My way of speaking is simply enchanting. I'm so posh, I use an unopened bottle of Dom Perignon as my dildo. He's a little overbearing. Oh, and this version of The Hobbit features a lot of songs, and it seems like literally every time the plot needs hurrying along, one starts playing. And this happens a lot. It gets so old.
The greatest adventure today and tomorrow. The mold of your life, it's time you start.
You shut the f up. So yeah, this TV special is serviceable. If you're a die-hard Tolkien nut, maybe watch this, but for most of you, you're not missing much if you skip it. But should you skip that other Lord of the Rings adaptation that mostly everyone knows about? Yeah, let's talk about Ralph Bakshi's version. So Bakshi's Lord of the Rings came out just 1 year after the Rankin Bass version of The Hobbit, and instead of traditional animation, this is rotoscoped, which if you didn't know is where you film real-life footage and trace over it frame by frame. Now rotoscoping can look fantastic. Many classic Disney films were done this way, but here, it doesn't quite work for me. And I think the best reason for this is because rotoscoping is best used to animate bodies, not so much faces. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what Bakshi has done here. His animators seem to have used the actors' expressions as reference, and often it works, but often it doesn't.
It's like I'm walking on sunshine.
Seriously, I found myself unintentionally laughing a lot at this picture. Mostly because the animation style reminded me of...
Ganon and his minions have seized the island of Khraniteli.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that bad, but that is what I was reminded of.
I'm so hungry, I could eat an octorok.
Oh, and just look at Frodo's face here.
Look.
What the hell happened to his eyes? I mean, I hate to knock it, rotoscoping sounds like a major pain in the ass to do, but it seems like to cut costs, many scenes are just regular filmed actors, and to help blend those in a little, they just put a lot of black smudges on them. It's not a good look. And speaking of not good looks, check out even more of the faces they pull in this. Oh, but my favourite face?
I shall have such need of strength.
How can you not laugh at that? What the bloody hell is he smoking?
Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind.
You know, I'm surprised Derp Gandalf here didn't catch on as some kind of meme. It's too good. Okay, animation aside, how's the actual movie? Because it does have a cult following. A lot of people sing its praises. And yeah, I see the appeal. It's got a unique and interesting vibe to it. It's very well voice acted with the likes of John Hurt as Aragorn, and I still can't get over how that's 3PO voicing Legolas.
On the gates of your most wondrous ancient kingdom, you write, "Speak, friend, and enter." And no spell in any language can open the door.
So yeah, Bakshi's Lord of the Rings is definitely the best adaptation I'm talking about today. Though don't be fooled, it has issues up the arse. Because this is only a 2-hour adaptation of both The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, it does feel pretty rushed. Not as rushed as the Rankin Bass version. There are some scenes where they do let the atmosphere and characters breathe a little, but many scenes are left on the cutting room floor to hit that 2-hour runtime, with the events of The Two Towers going by very quickly, and so much is explained insultingly fast. Like here, Merry and Pippin join Frodo and Sam on their journey. Off screen.
And Merry and Pippin insisted on coming with us as far as Bree.
Seriously, this is how we're introduced to them. And speaking of Merry and Pippin, check out this bizarre edit when they first meet Treebeard.
That's uncommonly kind of you.
And the orcs made us run all the way here, and when we couldn't run anymore, they carried us. And I cut our rope, ran into the forest, and we came
Wait, time out. You have just been picked up by a moving, talking tree. Aren't you at least a little weirded out about that?
It's talking, Mary. The tree is talking.
Yeah, like that. Thank you, Billy. And the pacing is really off in some parts. Like the Rohirrim attack on the Uruks that took Merry and Pippin. That scene is given way too much screen time here, where for some reason they don't even want to attack each other.
No shooting, wasting arrows, dunghill swine.
I don't get it. Or when Frodo was on Asphalot, for some reason the ring race and him just sort of look at each other for like 2.5 minutes of screen time before Frodo's like, oh yeah, maybe I should, I don't know, run! And there's so many other things I don't like, from how they turned Sam into a bumbling idiot.
You're hopeless.
To how they can never seemingly decide on whether to call him Saruman or Aruman?
Saruman. 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 Saruman.
Saruman.
Saruman.
Look, I don't mind you calling him Arrow Man if you want, just pick a name and stick to it. You're not Prince. And then there's the downright confusing edits. Like, check out this scene where they're talking about Lothlorien after escaping the Balrog.
Lothlorien is a place of healing. There is no evil in it, unless a man brings evil there with him.
Welcome to Lothlorien.
You know, if we could have just arrived here with a jump cut, why did we bother with Moria? And it goes on. Merry and Pippin have no personality, the Nazgul look like tall Jawas, Saruman and Theoden look like Santa, and Gandalf, as it turns out, is a closet Nazi.
Hi, Hitler. Hi, Hitler.
Though if there is one thing I really like about this version, it's Frodo. He is much more proactive than Elijah Wood's rendition, with Wood's version often letting other characters pick up the slack for him.
The Hobbit has shown extraordinary resilience to its evil.
Really? The guy who dropped his sword fell over backwards and let someone else ride him to Rivendell? That guy's resilient? No. This guy is resilient.
By all the Shire, you shall have neither the ring nor me.
Whoa, since when is Frodo such a badass? I like this guy. There's a couple other things I like too, like when Gandalf fights the Balrog, the Fellowship actually attempts to save him, as opposed to just awkwardly gawking at him. And at Weathertop, Aragorn doesn't leave the Hobbit's side. He's always with them in this version. That makes more sense. Like, where the hell does he even go in the Jackson film?
I'm gonna take a piss.
Legitimately, there are a few things here this version does better. But don't misunderstand, Bakshi's version doesn't hold a candle to the 2000s trilogy. It's okay though, and if you do like the rotoscoped look, and aren't too turned off by Gandalf's me eyes, you might actually really dig this. And look, I myself quite enjoyed it, just more often for the wrong reason.
One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all.
Was the spin really necessary? Okay, but this is part one of Bakshi's films. How was his version of Return of the King? Huh? Yeah, Bakshi never did Return of the King. It ends with the victory at Helm's Deep, and that's that at the end.
Wait a minute, what happened? What happens next? Come on, let's see the next episode.
That's it?
What?
And it's weird the sequel never happened, because contrary to popular belief, the film was actually financially successful, grossing $30.5 million on an estimated budget of $4 to $12 million. But the fan response was muted, and Bakshi went on to call the production of this movie the worst experience of his life. So I guess that would explain why part 2 never got made. Okay, well, what's next then? Wait, did somebody else make Return of the King? Well, yeah, but this is weird because this is not a Ralph Bakshi production. It's another Rankin Bass one. Yeah, the 1977 version of The Hobbit got a sequel, but they decided to skip the entire events of Fellowship and Two Towers and cut straight to Return of the King? What? Well, when Rankin was asked about why he skipped straight to the third book as opposed to telling the story of the whole trilogy, he said, "I didn't know that the audience would sit still for it. I was wrong." Yeah, he was wrong, alright. I mean, I was so confused how this film could even exist. How on earth can you skip Fellowship and Two Towers? Well, here's how. This movie weirdly begins after the ring is destroyed, as the hobbits, Gandalf and Hela Elrond, are chilling in Rivendell, where they talk about the events of Return of the King. Then it flashbacks to tell the story, starting from the moment when Sam enters Cirith Ungol. There is so much exposition to try to catch you all up, and if you weren't already familiar with the story, this would make zero sense. I mean, granted, there are some things that get adapted here that the Jackson film didn't show, which actually makes for interesting viewing today, like how Denethor uses a Palantir in this one, and I think this shouldn't have been cut from the Jackson version. If you ask me, this would have helped better demonstrate why he goes mad. But at least John Noble didn't laugh like this. Also, another power of the ring is shown here, where holding it can sometimes make you appear more intimidating, like that scene where Sam takes on those orcs in Jackson's version. Well, in the books and in this version, he doesn't fight them. They actually just run away from him, as the One Ring makes Sam appear more menacing. It's interesting to see how they changed it for Sean Astin's scene, because instead of the ring making him appear more menacing, him growling in the shadows does that. Then they flip it on its head when he reveals himself.
As for Gollum, his death is handled differently too.
Because in the Peter Jackson version, Frodo and him struggle, which leads to him falling off the cliff. But in this version, he just trips on his own.
Gollum has completed our quest.
Thank God we didn't have to.
Now, I have heard an argument in favour of this ending, because some people say that it was the ring that caused him to trip, because he swore to protect Frodo on the ring itself.
The ring is treacherous. It will hold you to your word.
So when he breaks that vow, the ring causes his demise. Kinda similar, I guess, to what happened to Isildur. It betrays him. But this also causes the ring itself to be destroyed, and I don't think it would want that, because it's trying to get back to its master, right?
So, I still prefer Jackson's version of this scene.
There's also several other changes, but none are for the better. Like, you see these statues in Jackson's version? Well, those play a more pivotal role in the book, and this version adapts that, as they project an invisible barrier, which Sam uses the vial of Galadriel to pass. But because we never see Galadriel give Frodo the vial in this one, this just comes across as a bit too convenient.
How do I get past this barrier? That was easy.
Oh, but then there's Theoden's death, which is pretty violent and quite effectively shocking in the 2003 film.
But here, what kills him? Darkness.
Seriously, a bit of shade spooks his horse and he falls off and he dies.
Hear me! Hear me, O darkness!
Seriously?
I will avenge my lord!
Curse you, darkness! I will leave my porch light on overnight just to smite thee!
So you might be wondering, well, where the hell is the Witch King then? Oh, there he is.
Leave the dead in peace.
Come not between the maskell.
Seriously? That's what the Witch King sounds like? I mean, I can't be the only one who's thinking of somebody else here.
And by the way, do you know the way back to Castle Grayskull? For I must make plans to defeat He-Man!
But it's weird that this is called Return of the King, because Aragorn is barely in it.
Though given how his voice actor reads his lines, maybe that's for the better.
We shall see.
Nice reading there, mate.
We shall see.
We shall see.
So yeah, most of the runtime focuses on Sam and Frodo, which gets old fast for two reasons. One is that they never stop f***ing moaning.
Not an inch further can I move. The quest has failed. Just give me a moment.
'Tis a long time, Mr. Frodo.
Can't manage the weight of this mail. Blasted moonlight. Going to die.
This is the end of ends.
Oh my God, moaning Myrtle moans less than you.
And the second issue...
Less can be more.
Yeah, those shitty ass songs make a comeback. And look, it's hard for me to demonstrate just how effing often these songs start playing.
And it gets especially bad when they say a line.
Still, Sam, we shall have to try.
And then they use that line as the subject matter for a song.
It's so easy not to try.
But there's still such a long way to go.
That's tomorrow, Mr. Frodo. Tomorrow.
If they start singing about tomorrow, I'm gonna shoot myself.
Leave tomorrow till it comes.
But speaking of songs, there is one that I've had stuck in my head for several days now.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way.
It's that whip sound timed perfectly on the beat that makes my head bop.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way.
But yeah, this film is just weird. It's all over the place, spending way too much time on irrelevant things and glossing over very important things.
And the dialogue can get very, 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 very odd.
You, who I can feel you throbbing with excitement.
I think Sam wants to f*** the ring. Okay, this is driving me insane. What's the next one called?
What? the hell? The fabulous journey of Mr. Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit, across the wildland, through the dark forest, beyond the misty mountains, there and back again.
Rolls straight off the tongue.
Okay, so I'm just gonna call this The Hobbit, for it's another adaptation of Tolkien's first book, and this is a children's television play, which aired in 1985 in the Soviet Union. And whilst it is better than the Swedish Teleplay,
there is still not really any reason to watch this.
I mean, it is somewhat interesting that Russian Abe Vigoda here is playing Tolkien himself, as the special cuts between him and the play as he retells the story of The Hobbit, but it's paced horribly, skipping many scenes from the book like Elrond is in this, and the entire encounter with the trolls isn't here either.
And there are so many design choices which are just odd.
Like Bilbo is wearing pink in this for some reason, the dwarves are all dressed like medieval Power Rangers,
and Gandalf, I mean, just look at him.
Я пошлю вас участвовать в моем приключении. Меня это развлечет, а для вас будет...
I'm honestly kind of freaked out by this guy.
There's something about the way he stares which is just unsettling.
Oh, and it doesn't help that the dude never stops laughing. So this is what it would be like if Gandalf took the ring.
The perspective change with the dwarves is also weird. Sometimes they try to make them look smaller, to horrendous effect might I add, and other times Gandalf is the same exact size of them.
Consistency? What's that?
But the cherry on this shit Sunday has got to be the music numbers. Yeah, there's songs and dances in this, because apparently they roped in ballerinas from a theatre in St. Petersburg, and these guys portray the people of Lake Town and do a song and dance number there. But honestly, in hindsight, some of the music here is quite nice. The main theme, for instance, has no right being so good.
Дорога вдаль и вдаль ведет под солнцем или под луной, но голос сердца позовет, не возвращаешься домой.
I think that's really pleasant. It's a lovely melody.
But the songs can still accompany some exceptionally odd moments. Like, check out this scene where Bilbo and the dwarves are sleeping in the cave, and are ambushed by the goblins.
Okay, time out. These are the goblins?
I don't get it. They're just humans. Like, did you run out of makeup or something?
Put them in green face paint at least. Are you even trying?
But jeez, with our crappy budget, how the hell do we do Gollum?
Okay, here's what we do. We cover him in green face paint, cover his whole body in webs, put two fake teeth in his gob, and then adorn his head with a green-colored ball cap with fish fins.
Без голоса кричит, без зубов кусает, без крыльев летит, без горла завывает.
Weta Digital, eat your heart out.
Oh, and it doesn't help that this scene of Bilbo and Gollum exchanging riddles goes on for over 10 minutes, which in a special that's just over an hour long is a lot. And with talks of the small-ass budget nature of this,
you might be wondering, how did they go about recreating Smaug?
Мои зубы, мечи.
Yeah, Smaug is on loan from Mattel, it would seem.
Action figures each sold separately.
I mean, there's something kind of charming about this, actually. It's like the Be Kind rewind of The Hobbit. You have to admire something that's so phenomenally shit.
And it appears there is some online admiration for this play.
For I found a lot of YouTubers who like to add their own fake subtitles for shits and giggles.
Alright, I had to give it a go.
Об пол бутылки, в печку салфетки, в печку салфетки. Будет порядок, только скажи.
So if you're willing to have some fun taking the piss out of this one, maybe check it out.
Ситуация может представляться требующей некоторых разъяснений.
Otherwise, definitely skip it. And you know what else you should also skip? The other Soviet-produced Tolkien teleplay.
Now there are two of them.
Yep, this other one, titled Guardians in English, is a Lord of the Rings retelling, which came out 6 years later in 1991. So yeah, just as the Soviet Union was collapsing. And would you believe me when I say that this version is even worse? Like, much worse. I mean, the 1985 teleplay had a weird charm to it, but oh my effing lord, this was horrible to sit through. Abandon all hope, ye who dare to watch this shit. It's a bizarre retelling of Fellowship of the Ring, with horrendous production, god-awful acting, and the most confusing direction imaginable. Like, watch this scene where Gandalf the Purple here greets Bilbo at his birthday party. Confused? Yeah. Welcome to the party, pal! Took me forever to figure out those are actually Gandalf's fireworks. I thought he was just showing off his red cloak. Or how about this scene where Bilbo is about to give the ring to Gandalf? Okay, we need to demonstrate the power of the ring and the sway it still holds on Bilbo. I've got it. We play a shitty-ass 80s music beat and have Gandalf make shadow puppets with his hands. Look, you think I'm joking? Watch. I am losing my mind. Help me. And what is with Frodo in this? First of all, he looks like the forbidden love child of Johnny Rotten and Mr. Bean, and it seems like the actor was purposefully reading his lines as bizarrely as possible.
Нет. Нет, нет. Хоббиты не бросают друзей в беде. Нет.
This guy must have been on some kind of illegal substance. Surely. Because the hobbits here remind me less of Frodo and Sam and more of Beavis and Butthead. Oh, and yeah, that's Tom Bombadil again. And when you watch his scenes, you'll understand immediately why this character never made it into the Jackson version. For, like the book, he saves the hobbits from Old Man Willow, an evil tree spirit which the Soviets interpreted as looking like this.
Have entered hell.
And look, this is super low budget. And by that, I mean no budget. The actors weren't even paid. They just lived off their state-sanctioned salary. Soviet Union, remember? And despite being produced by an official television network, it apparently was filmed in about 9 hours. Yeah, they filmed this whole thing in less time than it would take to watch the Jackson trilogy.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
And given the technology of the time, it is no wonder it's so bad. Just look at Gandalf atop the eagle.
Oh my god!
And whenever there's an action scene, no need to choreograph anything. Just slow down the footage and attack the cameraman. There is nothing wrong with your screen, by the way. This is really what it looks like. And you might be thinking, if they had no budget, how on earth did they film the Balrog sequence? Well, spoiler alert, they didn't. So you might be like, what, so Gandalf lives then? No, here's what they do.
А где же Гэндальф? Кто видел его последний, Фродо? Неужели он остался в пещере? Боюсь, что он погиб, защищая нас. Гэндальф. Мы осиротели.
I mean, this special has to be seen to be believed. It makes Tommy Wiseau look like Martin Scorsese. Just look at how they handle the Mirror of Galadriel.
Это я!
Черный властелин Саурон! Я слежу за вами! Отдай мне кольцо Фрода! Брось его в чашу! Все равно оно не поможет вам!
Okay, those were my subtitles, but believe me, I didn't realize how bad this was going into it. I thought, oh, the Russians did one teleplay, maybe this next one would be better. But oh lord, the design decisions in this alone made me want to call the police. Elrond looks like Matt Damon with a beard. Sam has drawn-on eyebrows. The innkeeper of the prancing pony looks like Saddam f***ing Hussein. Merry looks like a man in drag, which is confusing because he's a man playing a man. And do you want to see what Gollum looks like? Yep, cover him in face paint and put a cabbage on his head. Job's a good un.
My cabbages!
I could go on and on with this one. I mean, the Barrow Wights from the book get adapted here. And I'm very glad Jackson chose to omit them. God bless you, sir. I truly do not understand how this got made. This was actually thought lost for several years before Russian network 5TV decided to upload it to YouTube. So, if you do have a death wish, you can now witness it in all its shitty glory. What more can I say than how fitting it is that this was made by the drunkest nation on the planet. Now we have one more adaptation to look at, but before I get to it, it actually came to my attention when editing this video that the Soviets actually gave Adapting The Hobbit yet another go. This time in cartoon form, with The Hobbit, Treasures Under the Mountain. And this one, by the looks of it, looks to be far superior to the other teleplays I've just talked about. There is, however, one tiny problem. This version was never finished. Yeah, remember how Guardians was shot around the collapse of the Soviet Union? Yeah, well, this was also produced around the same time, but given how the production of this one was likely going to take more than 9 hours to complete, yeah, its production studio couldn't possibly get it done in time. And before they knew it, oh shit, we're Russia now. As far as we know, only the 6-minute prologue of this survives, and it's a shame because the animation in this looks pretty decent.
На чьих дверях вы увидите этот знак, вам поможет. Спешите, пока не поздно.
Looks quite anime-esque, I think. Quite reminiscent of Japanese animation from the 80s. Now, there's really not much to talk about with it. Most of it is just a guy narrating over Smaug's initial attack on Lake Town, so it's difficult to form an opinion on it. But colour me disappointed, at least, that the rest of this was never made, because I would have liked to have seen where it went. Okay, so we're now on our last official adaptation, and for that, we're heading to Finland. For in 1993, they adapted Lord of the Rings into a 9-part miniseries called Hobbit. Oh, sorry, Hobitit. Translates as Hobbits, which is a fitting title as this iteration chooses to only focus on Frodo and Sam's journey. All the events that Frodo and Sam aren't a part of aren't adapted, which makes sense given this is another low-budget offering. But is it low quality? Well, we've looked at some shit today, with the live-action versions of Lord of the Rings really suffering. But out of the live-action versions pre-Jackson trilogy, this is the best one. It's still not very good though. It's clear this is really hampered by its budget as well, because to save on costs, they have an older Sam tell the story. Yeah, this is supposed to be Sam. He looks more like Princess Bride Billy Crystal.
True love is the greatest thing in the world.
And whenever there's a scene that would be too expensive to film, they instead just have Sam tell you what happened, whilst a bunch of incredibly bored-looking children listen to his story. Oh, and this is supposed to be the Shire, by the way. Why it looks so bloody dank and depressing, I don't know. In fact, this whole miniseries is dank and depressing. Everything looks so grim and lifeless, and you'll quickly notice that nearly all of this was shot on a blue screen. And whilst it is a competently keyed out blue screen this time, it's just depressing to never see a real life location. I mean, this is Finland. It's a stunning country. Quite New Zealand-esque, actually. Why not take advantage of it? Even that shitty-ass Soviet version sometimes shot on location. Not very well, mind you, but still. Now, the first major oddity I noticed in this version are the music choices. Because look, we're all familiar with the orchestral mastery of Howard Shore. Sweeping, beautiful orchestras. Goddamn, Lord of the Rings wouldn't be nearly as good without that man's work. But for Hobitit, what genre of music do they use for the soundtrack? Jazz. Slow, sexy, sax-heavy jazz.
I mean, come on, this isn't Lord of the Rings. The only way this soundtrack would be fitting is if you put Frank Drebin in it. Watch!
Her hair was the color of gold in old paintings. She was giving me a look I could feel in my hip pocket.
And when he doesn't go the jazz route, it's still so unfitting.
Like, remember the incredibly disturbing but brilliant scene of Smeagol killing Deagle? In the Jackson version, it is so unsettling to watch. But here, the soundtrack makes it sound like it's played for laughs.
Oops. He just strangled his beloved cousin to death. Silly Smeagol, what the hell are you doing?
Simon, go f*** yourself!
I mean, to this special's credit, it does do some things well. Considering its budget, the acting is pretty good. I actually think Gandalf's pretty cool in this.
Minusta tuntuu, kunnianarvoisa Elrond, että tässä asiassa olisi syytä luottaa enemmän heidän ystävyyteensä kuin suureen viisauteensa.
And it is the best live-action adaptation of Tom Bombadil out there, even though he looks like a Native American for some reason.
But the unironic highlight of this series has got to be when they get to the Prancing Pony,
where Frodo gets up to do a song and dance number, which, by the way, the Bakshi version also does this. But here, the song is actually amazing.
Not convinced? Well, check out this bit where Frodo hypes up the violinist to do a solo. I don't get it. How does a show go from making the worst musical decisions ever to giving us this banger? Oh, we gotta get back to the plot.
Okay, but what about Gollum in this one? Well, he is definitely better portrayed here than any of the other live-action adaptations we've seen today, but it is still weird to see a grown-ass man playing him. I mean, credit to the actor, he's really going for it. But I just don't think Gollum can be portrayed well without some sort of visual effects at play. The effects in this one are weird. I mean, some are handled well enough. Yeah, that was actually one of the good effects. But remember how in the 1991 Soviet version, they just skipped the fight with the Balrog and had Gandalf die off screen?
Well, would you believe me when I say that this version handles that moment even worse?
Because here, Gandalf tells the Fellowship to flee, and then he just trips and falls down a hole. Oh, keep watching, it gets worse.
And you know what? There's another falling scene in Lord of the Rings, isn't there?
When Gollum falls into the lava, yep, they use that same effect again.
Why add the spinning effect? They're falling, not flushing.
Now flush.
And yeah, the lack of budget is clearly evident in other parts. From the Asphaleth chase scene being skipped, to Galadriel only showing up as a shitty reflection, to Shelob's attack awkwardly being handled off screen, to these god-awful boat effects, cause Lord forbid we hire a fucking canoe for a couple hours.
And the looks of the characters are weird too.
When Gandalf shows up at the end, his skin is blue for some reason.
Ja läntisten maiden herran. Hän on palannut.
And who needs a hair department when you can just buy a shitload of wigs?
You get a wig. You get a wig. You get a wig. You get a wig. Oh, you don't get a wig. That's a very interesting haircut choice for Middle-earth. Who the hell is this character?
Antakaa minun ensin kertoa Gondorista, sillä totisesti Gondorin maastolle minä tullut.
Wait, is that supposed to be fucking Boromir?
Okay, so Boromir in this has a side cut and he's rocking a snake tattoo on his head like bloody Peter Wright. And to top that off, he's wielding a goddamn katana sword.
I don't think that's what Tolkien had in mind for him, but I bet you anything that that katana belongs to that actor.
So yeah, I was hopeful this last one would be good, but with the Jackson trilogy out there, there is no reason to watch this.
Okay, there's one reason. I want to go to a Lord of the Rings concert one day where they play this.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is every on-screen adaptation of The Lord of the Rings in the 20th century.
Of course, after Jackson's trilogy, there are more versions.
A couple of fan films here and there, Tolkien himself got a biopic, and of course there was the recent Rings of Power series on Amazon, which gets a lot of flack, but given what I've seen in this video, I have a much greater appreciation for it.
Much love to everyone who clicked on this video and stuck around to the end. I've got more videos like this in the works, so please subscribe if you're new, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you really dig the video. Till next time guys, Namarie.